What's up, guys? It's your boy Wimpy. This is the Rebel Revelations podcast, and I'm your host. This is episode 2 in Wimpy and Philosophy, where we'll be discussing good and evil. So, good and evil in society is more or less subjective on a societal level. Who decides what's good and evil? If you ask the right, they'll say abortion's evil. If you ask the left, they'll say it's not evil, and vice versa. You know, on these very basic and minute details. So, I'm going to take a very objective stance. Be objective as I can when talking about good and evil on our level. We'll just classify evil as suffering and good as joy. Okay? So, why? Why do we have suffering? Well, basically, you can't have good without evil, alright? Without pain, without suffering, we would have nothing. That comes from Fight Club. But, the more you suffer, when you make it to the end of that tunnel, the more joy you're going to feel, alright? So, like, think of climbing to the top of a mountain. That view at the top is going to feel a whole lot better and look a whole lot better if you had to climb all the way to the top, opposed to just driving to the top and looking at the view. You know, earning your view makes it feel a lot better. Alright? But suffering is necessary. It's a part of life. In The Matrix, there's a scene where Agent Smith is interrogating Morpheus. And he's talking to Morpheus about the first Matrix they made, where they made it into a utopia where there was no suffering. It was just pure bliss. And the human mind rejected it. So they had to make this the Matrix of the current movie, where there was still suffering and heartache in the world. That way the human mind could accept it. Suffering is ingrained into our existence. So, in a Buddhist way of thinking, yes, they say suffering, life is suffering, basically. And the root of all suffering is desire or attachment, on one level. Yes, there's like physical pain and whatnot, and starving and death. But like mental pain is rooted in desire and attachment. Let's say you have something that gives you a lot of joy. Whenever you lose that thing that gives you joy because you're attached to it, you're going to suffer. And desire, it also leads to suffering because you're not living in the present moment. The desire for a more positive experience is itself a negative experience. But the acceptance of a negative experience is itself a positive experience, if that makes sense. So, I highly advise you guys go down this route, the quest for enlightenment, and you'll learn some things. All right. So the Buddhists, they'll go on. The idea behind it to reach nirvana is to let go of your desires. But the desire to stop desiring is itself a desire. So you have a paradox, right? But when you eventually let go of letting go, then you figured it out. See, you're never going to escape suffering. That's just part of living. But just accepting it and stop trying to control it, embracing the suck, that's when you reach enlightenment. So, that's basically it. You just gotta go down the path for yourself. Before enlightenment, you're anxious and depressed, but you identify with that anxiousness and depression. You identify with your mind, your thoughts. But after enlightenment, you're still going to be anxious and depressed, but you don't give it as much power. You don't identify yourself with those thoughts and feelings. You can just let them be, because that's a part of living. But Yeah. And the good part of suffering, there is good in the bad. It builds endurance, like Paul talks about. It builds strength. Imagine, we can see this, but like kids that are spoiled, they never have any hardships. They get everything they want. They're very weak mentally, and they're very entitled. They've never been through heartache. So whenever something bad happens, dude, they're just destroyed. And it could just be some tiny little thing that just sends them off the rails. Because they've never been toughened up, in a sense. So suffering builds strength. That's a good part of it. Now, let's talk about in the eyes of God. Why? Why is there evil? In Christianity has modern Christianity has a very dualistic view of the thing. It talks about fallen angels, Satan, it's a rebellion against God, and now there's a conflict between God and Satan, and there's this battle between the forces of good and evil, God good, Satan evil. That goes way back to Zoroastrianism, which Cyrus of Persia was Zoroastrian. He was a Messiah in the Old Testament. The word for Messiah is Mashiach, but he's one of the Messiahs in the Old Testament. But that doesn't mean he was right about everything, because he still was Zoroastrian. And that's why Isaiah wrote in Isaiah 45, chapter 45, verse 7, I form light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So there's not these angels and Satan running around doing whatever they want, and God just can't control them. God creates them. He made Satan for a purpose. Nothing can be in rebellion to God. If he's omnipotent, he's in control of everything. So why did he make Satan and demons? There's a purpose for everything. Satan shows up for the first time in the Bible of Job. He shows up very rarely in the Old Testament. But in the book of Job, Satan comes, Satan, the Hebrew for it, which means the accuser, accuses Job of only loving God because God gives him everything. And then God tells him, here's what you can do to Job, and here's what you can't do. And then Satan goes and does those things to test Job. Does that sound like an angel in rebellion to you? No. Satan's doing exactly what God's telling him to. He can't be in open rebellion. The idea of the fallen angels and rebellion comes from Enoch. There's 3 different books of Enoch, and it's not included in the Bible chronology for reasons. I think it's made up, personally. There might be truth to it. Like all things, there's truth in it, but most of it is false. The idea of it is very dualistic, and this isn't a dualistic world. God is in control of everything. So, the way I view the universe, universe, is it's a novel, or a movie that God's directed, a novel that God's written. And just imagine reading a book where the main character doesn't have any opposition. He gets whatever he wants whenever he wants it. There's no hardships. There's no struggle. He lives happily ever after. That would be an incredibly boring book or movie. Nobody wants to watch that. The struggle, the comeback, the conflict, that's what makes a novel interesting. So in one aspect, yeah, evil makes things interesting. Okay? I recommend you watch a movie Asteroid City. It's very deep, and you have to think about it, but it pretty much shows life being a movie. In it, it's basically a play. Well, it's a movie about a documentary about a play, and then you just have to watch it. But now let's talk about unnecessary suffering, the very worst of evil. Okay. In the Brothers Karamazov, I keep bringing it up because it's a beautiful novel. Part 5, Book 4, Mutiny. Ivan, the atheist intellectual, is arguing with Alyosha, the spiritual character. They're both Karamazov's brothers. And Ivan, he's bringing up these examples of innocent children and innocent beings suffering and dying, and God not being there to help. And his point is that it's not God he rejects, but God's world that he rejects. Hence the name of the chapter, Mutiny. So we're confronted with this, especially nowadays, with human trafficking, the worst that humanity has come up with. Slavery, in a way. But innocent children suffering and nothing being done about it. I recommend you watch the movie The Sound of Freedom. It goes to show how the government doesn't really do anything about human trafficking. Yes, they catch the people with the videos, the child porn on their computers and stuff, but they never catch the people making it. And the guy in The Sound of Freedom, based on a true story, he has to leave the CIA, or I think he's working for the NSA. He has to leave them to actually track down the people that are doing this to save a kid. Our government doesn't really do a whole lot about human trafficking, and that's a shame. Why? Well, go watch Modern Maid's Epstein series. You'll probably get very depressed watching it, but he goes into it. And Epstein isn't the first historical case we got. There was a case in Belgium, a case in Florida and Washington, D.C., where the perpetrators basically just got away because the investigation was thwarted in every way it could have. There's powerful people involved. Human trafficking is a billion-dollar industry. Billions, hundreds of billions of dollars are made. So there are very powerful people involved. Now, what do I think about him? Like how Pharaoh was raised up so God could destroy him to show his power in the world, so are these evil people who are culprits of this same principle. They have all the power, all the wealth, all the influence. They own the politicians. They have the judges in their back pockets. They own the corporate media, but they're losing power. It looks like they're untouchable. They think they're untouchable, but God's still going to cut them down. And the plan is going to be so brilliant that only God could have made it, came up with it. A lot of people will be brought to faith in God through this. And that's really what the end times are going to look like. The wicked getting cut down, and the meek and the poor inheriting the land. So, what side are you going to be on? Another point that Dostoevsky brings up in a lot of his books is we're not only responsible for our own sins, we're responsible for the sins of others. Just standing by and letting evil do its thing, unnecessary evil, the human trafficking, just letting it happen is just as bad as committing it. I wouldn't say just as bad, but you're letting these kids suffer. There are kids out there suffering right now. Innocent people suffering. And we got people more worried about buying a new truck or becoming famous, getting a new house. They're so caught up in their own worlds, and there's kids out there suffering. All right? This is a collective effort. We need to come together on these things. The government ain't going to do nothing about it. What are we going to do about it? All right? This is purpose. If you're looking for purpose, there's no better purpose than to protect the weak, to fight the just cause for the oppressed. Liberate the oppressed is the motto of Green Berets. But this is a group effort. We all have to come together on this. And we can't be bickering over stupid shit that doesn't matter when there's kids suffering. Okay? And we're the underdogs in this story. They have all the power. But we're still going to win. Like I said, giants. Suffering is needed in order to exist. It's a part of life. But there's suffering we can do without, like human trafficking. We can do without that. We can do without war. All right? We can do without this stuff. Minimize the suffering. What side are you going to be on? James chapter 1, verse 27. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Are you going to be a hero? Are you going to be on the team and help out to plead the cause of the poor and the afflicted? Or are you going to just sit by and let it happen? You're going to have to choose. First step, become informed. What's done in the dark will keep on its course unless it's brought to the light. We got to shine a light on these things. That's step one. And I know I said I was going to talk about demons and angels, but that's, the more I think about it, I've tried to explain these things and dive into it. It's above my pay grade. The best I can say is, with quantum physics, there's things that scientists can observe but they can't explain, like how a particle acts like a particle and a wave at the same time. We can observe it, but when we measure it and we try to figure out what's happening, it stops in one state. So we don't know why it does that. Same thing with quantum entanglement. We got two particles that are entangled. No matter how far apart they are, if we measure one and it's spinning up, we immediately the other one starts spinning down. We don't know why that happens. Now think of those particles on a mass of particles doing things you can't explain. These forces, demons and angels. What I'm saying is, there's things that happen in nature that we can observe, we just can't explain. Paranormal activities, abnormalities. And going back to Satan, personification is a literary tool we use to give objects human qualities, to better understand them, or to push forward the narrative of a story. Same thing is used with Satan. We give Satan human qualities better to understand him. Satan's his force of evil, of destruction and chaos and suffering. No, it's not literally a person running around with two horns coming out of its head. It's this force that's kind of moving below the scenes, and in order for our human brains to understand it, we give it human qualities. That's the best I can do. Like I said, stuff is above my pay grade. I don't know why. But I know why. To make the story interesting. And to make you tough. At the end of the day. And God's not going to come down here and fight our battles for us. He'll help us, for sure. But you're going to have to face your demons on your own. Daddy can't come and help you all the time. Daddy's not going to fight all your battles for you. Do it yourself. And know that God's there with you. But yeah, guys. That's the best I can do in explaining good and evil. There's levels to it. You're just going to have to figure out for yourself what's good and evil. But yeah. Have a good day, guys. I hope that was interesting. Be good.